Francisco has only had 3 at-bats all year, and he does not have a sacrifice. And a meeting at the mound.
I'd almost bet the house that he's going to bunt.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's what they're talking about. Lay the ball in there, and maybe we can make a play at third.
Swinging and a ground ball into center field. In comes Knight. It is 8-5 Mets. And Joe, you just lost your house.
Davey Johnson, I tell you, is living a charmed life. He's the only guy in the ballpark that thought he should hit, and it paid off for him again.
That had to be an invitation, of course, with Boggs charging the plate. Romero breaking to third. There just wasn't anybody there capable of handling a ground ball.
When reliever Jesse Orosco is delivering an RBI single in Game 7, you know that you've got a classic. But when people talk about the 1986 World Series, they don't generally talk about Game 7. Today on Crafting the Call, we're breaking down Game 6, bottom of the 10th inning, Bill Buckner through 3 different broadcasts. Hello and welcome in. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, voice of the Lansing Lugnuts.
And I'm Josh Suchon, voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes. Jesse, I have watched so many different versions of the 1986 playoffs, the ALCS, the NLCS, the World Series. When we were all stuck at home in the early stages of COVID, I kept rewatching games from this World Series, but I never really watched it the way that you and I are going to watch it today, listening to the Mets broadcast, listening to the Red Sox broadcast, listening to Vin Scully again, and really dissecting exactly how the announcers describe these incredible epic moments.
I mean, that's what we do on this, right? We do the full broadcaster breakdown. Why were they calling it this way, and what can we learn from it? This was a classic postseason. The Red Sox Angels in the ALCS. Dave Henderson hit one of the great playoff home runs ever. Meanwhile, over on the NL side, there are the Mets having to battle through a Houston Astros team where Mike Scott had their number. So off we move into the World Series, where the Red Sox are trying to break their curse against a Mets team that you and I have talked about. This was a lovable, popular Mets team.
Extremely popular team between Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden, Gary Carter. This is a team that, even though they were based in New York, this is a team that kids all around the country loved. I know that I grew up in the suburbs of San Francisco, and so many of my friends, so many of my classmates absolutely loved that 1986 Mets team. And it became just this team that just captured the fascination of the country. Back then, the Yankees were not the most popular team in New York. It was the Mets. And the Mets ruled the hearts of so many teenagers across the country that year.
So we've got the great matchup of the aces. We've got Roger Clemens against Doc Gooden. We've got the Red Sox taking a 3-2 lead into Game 6 in New York. And then in the top of the 10th inning, the Red Sox take the lead.
Well, let's listen to how Red Sox radio described the Red Sox taking the lead.
We're into extra innings again. 3-3 the score. And Dave Henderson ready to go to the plate against Aguilera. And once again for the action, here is Joe Castiglione.
All right, Ken. Henderson, then Spike Owen, and Don Baylor has a bat with Schiraldi due to hit third. Dave Henderson at the plate. 1 for 4. Fly to left, fly to center, grounded to short and singled off the body of the shortstop his last trip. Rick Aguilera. Aguilera, the 4th Mets pitcher, a right-hander. Winds and works. Swing and a miss, strike 1. He worked away, 0-1. No balls and 1 strike the count. Howard Johnson into play shortstop. Another move that'll be questioned for a while, I'm sure. Here's the windup, the 0-1. Swung on, there's a fly ball, deep left field. Way back it goes. And it is gone, a home run. Deja vu. Dave Henderson strikes again. The Red Sox have taken a 4-3 lead on Dave Henderson's home run leading off the 10th.
All right, Jesse, what do you think?
Well, the first thing is listening to the audio brings me back to my childhood where on AM radio, I would work to find that station and I'd go, all right, I can hear it. And I'd strain my ears and I'd listen to the call of baseball into the late hours. And I was young. And then this call, there's a couple of different things. The first is the immediate shout out of deja vu, because it was Henderson who hit the big home run to beat the Angels and launched the Red Sox out of the World Series from the ALCS. But also the delay, right? Just to make sure, is this actually a home run? Yes, just to confirm.
Yeah, the layout at Shea Stadium for that is such that it looks like it's going to be a home run, and then you see the ball on the field. And so it's not 100%. Wait, did it go off the wall and take this crazy long bounce? Did it hit off some structure at Shea Stadium, and that's why the ball is now on the field? And I'm almost positive that's probably why Joe was pausing right there, just to make sure in a moment like that. And we've talked about that on Crafting the Call, Jesse, about you think it's there, you don't want to say it incorrectly. So let me just wait, string out my words a little bit longer, and now I'm going to say home run.
I mean, that's what we do, right? Is we look at the umpire. We go, okay, there's the ball. What's the umpire going to say? All right, here we go. And you launch right into it. But it's such a great connection to the ALCS and such a great Dave Henderson strikes again.
Dave Henderson, one of the most unforgotten, and I don't want him to be forgotten, postseason heroes, because he was only in the Red Sox lineup because Tony Armas got hurt in Game 5 of the American League Championship Series. And so Henderson took over in the middle of that Game 5 when he hit that home run off Donnie Moore. And then Tony Armas was not able to play. And so Henderson was in the lineup because of that injury. And it looked at this moment, Jesse, like Dave Henderson was the hero that New England had been waiting for 80 years.
Just to talk about a broadcast philosophy real quick. Have you ever watched a soccer game and someone scores a goal late and the commentator says, that could do it, or this could be the goal that propels them to victory, or there very much is that leap to that's the winning goal, even though there's still time left. And I just don't think that same philosophy holds true in baseball. Perhaps you've heard broadcasters do that. Perhaps there has been a baseball broadcaster who would say in the top of the 10th inning, that might have won them the World Series. But that's not what happens here. All it does is it gives the Red Sox the lead.
And the Red Sox would score another run in the top of the 10th inning to give them a 2-run lead. And now we're going to skip ahead, Jesse, to the bottom of the 10th inning as the Red Sox, with a 2-run lead, are now 3 outs away from a World Series.
Well, Ken, Calvin Giraldi has 3 more outs to record.
Yes, sir. And the first man he will face is Wally Backman. It is 5-3. Backman, the second baseman, hit 385 of the World Series going into tonight's game. And the pitch comes on. He looks bunt, and it's a strike ball. It is 0-1. No balls and 1 strike. Boggs is playing up at third. And Buckner's in, and so is Barrett. This fellow's an excellent bunter. 5-3, the Red Sox leading, and Joe is going to head down toward the clubhouse area. There's a pop foul off to the left and out of play. Backman in the first inning called out on strikes. Flied to left in the 4th, had an infield base hit in the 6th, and sacrificed in the 8th. Hernandez is on deck. It is the last of the 10th. No balls and 2 strikes to count to Wally Backman. Calvin Giraldi winds and throws. There's a fly ball to left. Here comes Rice toward the line, and he makes the catch for the out. 1 away. Jim Rice catching a fly ball down the line in left field, and there's 1 down, and here is Keith Hernandez. He has flied to center, foul to third, single to center field.
I want to pause briefly here, Jesse, so that I'm really glad that we started at the top of the inning, because here's Ken Coleman describing that Joe Castiglione is heading down to the clubhouse to do interviews. So imagine Joe's perspective, knowing what we know about how the bottom of the 10th inning ends. And here he is making his way from the press box down to the clubhouse, trying to get there in time in case it's a really quick inning. And here's Ken Coleman on the call as the Red Sox are now 2 outs away from a World Series.
Then in the 8th was walked intentionally. Hernandez digs in on the left side. 1 out in the last half of the 10th. 5-3 Boston. And the pitch from Schiraldi is taken for a strike call. 0-1. Hernandez 238 now in the series with 1 for 3 tonight. The outfield plays him straight away. Here's the pitch on the way, a fastball outside, and it is 1-1. Boggs plays wide of third. Owen is shaded over toward the bag at short. Barrett is straight up at second. Buckner is not guarding the line at first. Hernandez calls time and steps out. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. 1 out. Schiraldi throws. Hernandez looks at a ball outside. It is 2-1. On deck is Gary Carter. And the pitcher spot follows Carter when they made the double switch earlier. Here's the pitch. Fly ball, center field deep. Henderson going back. He's got it at the warning track in deep center field. And there are 2 out in the last half of the 10th inning. And the batter is Gary Carter. Gary Carter comes to the plate for New York. He has lined to center, bounced back to the pitcher, been called out on strikes, and in the 8th inning he hit the sacrifice fly that tied up the game at 3. And the Red Sox with 2 in the 10th, and now 2 out in the last of the 10th, 5-3 Boston. And the pitch popped up foul and back out of play. Pitch Gedman going all the way back by the screen, but it's well up into the seats, and it's 0-1 to Carter.
All right, I'm going to pause this, Jesse, because I'm curious to get your perspective. It's definitely a different broadcaster philosophy, but at no point has Ken Coleman really used the words 1 out away from a World Series or something like that. And I'm curious your perspective as someone who's from back east and all of the pain that Red Sox fans have gone through and maybe getting into the mind here of Ken Coleman.
This is such an interesting question. Is there a worry about a broadcaster jinx? Which we talk about with regard to no-hitters, and which broadcasters are so worried about jinxing them, and which say, I've got no bearing on this. I'm going to tell you that there's a no-hitter in progress right now. That is such a fascinating question that he is treating this. All right, there's 2 outs in this inning, right? There is no talk of the championship is right there within their grasp, 1 out away. And is that a conscious choice on the part of Ken Coleman, the broadcast professional?
Also, you get to 1 out away from a World Series, regardless if you're the visiting team or the home team. And the Red Sox are the visiting team, obviously. But a lot of times you start to see more police presence, right? Like I've seen games in New York where the horses start to get into foul territory, right? To make sure the fans don't run onto the field. That you just start to see these different things that don't normally happen. And the decision needs to be made as a broadcaster, whether or not you're going to say these things about players on the top step or maybe describing hands together or things like that. You know, there can be this building of this drama about all of the times that the Red Sox came so close. 1975, you can use words like Bucky Dent and, you know, all of these different things through the history of the Red Sox. And at least at this point, Ken Coleman is not choosing that. He is just staying very focused, almost as if it's a game in August or September, that there's not the drama that is possibly about to happen. I'm not really capturing that. And again, it's a broadcaster's choice here, Jesse.
Well, I would describe it in general for a game. Do you describe the forest or the trees? And I think a good broadcaster is able to do both. That you can describe the tree, you can describe the pitcher and the batter, and here's the pitch. But you should also be able to describe the forest, which is the bigger picture of everything that's going on. And Ken Coleman is just looking right at that tree. And he's taking you right through it. Here's the score. Here's the situation. Here's the pitch. It's such a fascinating choice on this crucial spot.
Yeah, and well, maybe Ken knew something because we're going to skip ahead. Gary Carter singled, and then pinch hitter Kevin Mitchell singled, and then Ray Knight singled. And so now it is a one-run game. The tying run is at third base. And let's skip ahead to where things start to really get bizarre in New York.
Before you do, so Joe Castiglione, I'm reading his Sabre bio, and in the Boston Red Sox clubhouse, he hears a clubhouse security agent turn on his radio. The score is tied. And so Joe Castiglione races back up to the broadcast booth just in time to hear the climax.
Dale Ford, the plate umpire, gets a new supply of baseballs. 2 balls, 2 strikes the count to Wilson. Here's the pitch. Fouled off to the left and out of play, and the count hangs at 2 balls and 2 strikes. 5 runs on 13 hits and 2 errors for Boston. 4 runs, 8 hits, 2 errors for New York. Stanley ready. He throws, and the pitch is inside. It gets away from Gedman, and the tying run is home. The tying run scores, and down to second base goes Knight. 55,078 fans go wild as the Mets, with 2 out and the base is empty in the last of the 10th, have tied it up. Wilson's pulling away from the pitch, and now in a 5-5 tie, he's got Knight at second base. The pitch popped up on the first base side. Gedman going over, and it's out of play. Ray Knight is on second, and the score is tied at 5. And the ruling is a wild pitch. A wild pitch charged to Stanley. And that allowed Mitchell to score and even the count at 5. Here's the set. Here's the pitch, and it's lined foul down the third base side. Knight, the runner at second, representing the winning run, and Wilson at the plate. Big breaking ball that time that was inside the wild pitch, and the run comes on. Barrett comes in and has a word with Stanley, and it is 5-5 here. Knight at second. 3-2. The pitch. Ground ball to first base. Buckner. It goes by him. And here comes the winning run. The Mets have won it 6-5 on a ground ball to Buckner that went through him for what will have to be an error. And Knight comes home, and the Mets are still alive. They are going wild in New York as the New York Mets, after the Red Sox in the top of the 10th inning, got 2 with 2 men out and nobody on, come back and get 3 and win it. Win it 6-5 to force Game 7 tomorrow night. Game 7 tomorrow night. And we'll be back with a recap in a moment.
So can I just say that as someone who has called a game that we have lost in devastating fashion, and said, we'll be back with the recap, that moment after you say that, and the commercial starts. That's a very important moment. Whether you just collapse back in your seat, whatever it is so important to collect your thoughts and understand what you just witnessed.
There's been times in games when the team that I'm broadcasting for commits an error and it loses the game, and I know that like my hand gestures, I might go like this, I might go like this. I know that I have a job to do. I'm trying to capture the moment, be professional, but also I like to broadcast with my heart and with my passion. And when those moments happen, I think that Ken Coleman actually does a really good job of describing that it's an error, that the game is over, the Mets are still alive. It's a great phrase. Game 7 tomorrow. He repeats it a second time. And I almost wonder if he says Game 7 tomorrow twice as a reminder to himself and a reminder to Red Sox Nation. Game 7 is tomorrow. Game 7 is tomorrow.
I do think so. I absolutely think so. By the way, with you, do you use a stick microphone or do you broadcast with a headset?
Headset.
Okay. All of those broadcasters who use a stick, you cannot leave it, right? You have to talk into it. So it anchors you right there. But you and I, because we use the headset, it does allow us to be a lot more demonstrative than to march about. That stick microphone keeps you firmly grounded. And on that note of grounding, you and I both note that the score is shared an awful lot as this game reaches its denouement.
It's almost after every pitch, and I think that that's really important to do. A game in June, say the score at the start of every batter. If it's a really lengthy at-bat, say the score again later in the at-bat once it's reached maybe full count. In Game 6 of the World Series, when the score was 5-3, and then it's 5-4, and then it's 5-5, keep saying the score over and over again, because you think about who is listening on radio, especially in 1986, Jesse. There might be some people driving. There might be some people who have reached their home and they're in the driveway and they don't want to risk leaving their car and missing the action en route to their television. So they're going to stay in their driveway. It might be someone who's working an overnight shift and they've got the game on in the background and maybe they can't listen to every single word because they've got some task that they have to do. Over and over and over again in those moments, keep saying the score.
Winning run at second base in the person of Ray Knight. Winning run is at second. Like, here is where we are in the game. Here is that tree. I am describing the tree in front of you. The stage is what is important. And because there's so much else that can distract, because there's so much else that's going on, and it's the bottom of the 10th inning, and it's Game 6 of the World Series, and the Red Sox 2-run lead has vanished. We are going to stay right here. Here is the score, and now here is the pitch. And it's such a great thing for Ken Coleman, the veteran pro, for Kenny to just center himself right there, building the foundation of the call with the pitch, with the score each time.
All right, so that was the Red Sox perspective. Now let's listen to New York Mets radio. Bob Murphy and Gary Thorne were on the call, and we're going to begin in the bottom of the 10th inning as those announcers are mentally preparing themselves for the Red Sox winning the World Series.
Did he hit a sacrifice fly, a line drive to left? Vasily tagged up, scored the tying run. Waiting on a 2-1 delivery. The fly ball to center. Henderson going back, under it now. He has it, 2 men down. Hernandez hit it to the warning track, straight away in center field. Run down by Dave Henderson. 2 outs and nobody on. Marty Badd and Dave Henderson have been the big hitting stars for Boston. They are now 1 out away from a World Series championship. They have not had one in 67 years. The last time was 1918. Now Gary Carter carrying the final hopes. Pitcher is due up next. Kevin Mitchell is out on deck. And the pitch by Cirone. High pop foul. It might be playable. Goodman coming back, no play. Into the crowd. The game is still on. Red Sox now 1 out away from the World Series championship. Gary Carter without a hit in the game tonight. 0 for 3 and an RBI. The RBI, his 8th RBI of the series. He's had his share of RBIs. Pitch on the way. Look out. Up high. 1 ball and 1 strike. Kevin Mitchell is out on deck. He would bat for Rick Aguilera. Now Schiraldi will check it out. Infield to the outfield, very deep. Low and outside, 2 balls and 1 strike. Everybody sitting very quietly in that New York Mets dugout, hoping against hope that something will start to happen. The 2-1 delivery, line drive, it'll be a base hit to left field. The tying run, Kevin Mitchell will come to bat. So Carter keeps it going with a single to left field. And Kevin Mitchell will be the pinch hitter. And Mitchell does have home run power.
So a couple of great stories about this 10th inning. One of which is that when each of the 3 New York Mets get base hits, all 3 of them looked at the first base coach, who I believe is Bill Robinson, and said, I am not going to be the person that makes the last out in this World Series. And that's what Gary Carter just said. Now, this is the complete contrast, Jesse, from what we were hearing with the Red Sox. How many times did they just say 1 out away from the World Series?
Oh, my goodness. Bob Murphy is ready. He's ready to crowd him.
I also get the sense now, again, this is the radio broadcast. The TV has been added onto it so that we can see. And you get a sense that Bob Murphy is very much looking at the NBC TV monitor, right? He even says Marty Barrett, player of the game, even though that's a TV thing. We heard him say how there's just no energy in the Mets dugout at all, right? And the great shot that the NBC director shows. So he's very much capturing not just what's happening with each pitch, but what's happening in the dugouts and things like that.
Yeah, this is the wider call. He's calling the forest. He's calling what's about to happen for the Red Sox and how things are feeling from the Mets' perspective, which is highly pessimistic.
Let's get back to it.
A single to left field. And Kevin Mitchell will be the pinch hitter. And Mitchell does have home run power. Nothing going in the Red Sox bullpen. That's only the second hit Schiraldi has allowed. Doug Sisk is up in the New York Mets bullpen. Well, Strawberry got a wonder sitting over there. If the double change had been made, it might have been him coming to the plate right here. Strawberry came out. Davey did not make a double change at that point in time. So the hopes now have shifted to Kevin Mitchell. This rookie from San Diego, California, had a superb rookie year. The stretch by Schiraldi. And the pitch on the way. Check swing, foul ball, strike 1. 5-3 Boston. Bottom half of the 10th inning. 2 outs and 1 on. Red Sox won 96 games to win the American League Eastern Division title. Went to the 7th game before beating California. Here's the pitch. And a line drive base hit into center field. Now the tying runs are on base. Mitchell delivers a single to center, and Ray Knight will be coming up. So Gary Carter.
Okay, so the other great story about that, Jesse, is when the inning began, Kevin Mitchell this has been reported by Peter Gammons and multiple people, that he was in the clubhouse, shirt off, making a phone call, setting up his flight back to San Diego. And then word got to him, you're going to be pinch hitting here, Kevin. And so when you see him get on deck and he's still kind of loosening up and getting ready, he was just on the phone making a phone call and setting up a flight home. A check swing nearly ends it, and then a hanging breaking ball, which probably was a ball, a base hit. And now Bob Murphy says the tying run is at the plate.
About Kevin Mitchell. So 3 years prior, Kevin Mitchell and Calvin Schiraldi were teammates in the Texas League. And the way that Mitchell tells the story is Schiraldi told him how he'd pitch him, that he would bust him in and come back with a slider. And as you said, it's a hanging slider, But that's what he got. He got fastball, slider, and so Mitchell was ready against his old teammate.
So now the stage is set, and here comes Ray Knight.
Knight will be coming up. So Gary Carter singles, Kevin Mitchell is single. Tying runs are on first and second, 2 down, and Ray Knight will be the hitter. Ray earlier in the game, after getting off to a good start, driving in a run with a single off Roger Clemens, made a high throw that allowed one of the Red Sox runs to score. Now in this game of redeeming features, Ray Knight stands in with his biggest chance of all. Bill Fisher, the pitching coach, has been dispatched to the mound by John McNamara. And they'll have a little strategy talk here about how they're going to go about pitching to Ray Knight.
They'll get the bullpen up and active. Nobody had been throwing, however, so there's nobody ready out there, and they wouldn't make a change here probably in any event with a right-handed batter up.
Ray Knight, 1 for 3 and a walk in the game tonight. Davey has pretty well used up his bench. He's had to do that playing catch-up ball all night long. Now Ray Knight is the batter. He's the winning run at bat. Tying runs are on base. The stretch by Schiraldi. The pitch on the way. Fastball, a strike call. They're going to play straight away against Ray and pretty deep in the outfield. And the third baseman, Boggs, is not really playing the line. He's more or less moving away from the line now to try and chop off a single. Schiraldi is ready. The pitch to Ray Knight. And a ground ball slowly hit foul. No, a foul ball down the third base line. Boggs at first started to come in for it, realized the best play was to let it roll foul, and he did. And now, my friends, the New York Mets are down to their final strike. 2-strike count on Ray Knight. The Red Sox were down to their final strike with their game with California, their series with California. They were behind 3-1 and down to the last strike in the 9th inning. Dave Henderson, the same Dave Henderson who homered in the 10th inning here tonight, hit a 2-run homer. And the Red Sox went on to win it and to win the American League Championship. Now the Mets are down to that final strike. Cal Schiraldi, who went to Boston on the Bobby Ojeda deal, trying to get the biggest win of his young major league career by far and away. Now he blows on his pitching hand. Gary Carter on second, Kevin Mitchell on first. Mookie Wilson is the on-deck batter if Ray Knight can keep the ball game alive. Ray taking plenty of time. Now he's in the batter's box and ready. Here's the stretch by Schiraldi. Now the pitch on the way, and a soft line drive. It'll be a base hit into center field. Carter around third will score. Mitchell will go to third. A base hit by Ray Knight. The Mets now have the tying run on third. Ray Knight with the Mets down to their final strike. Gets a base hit to center field. It is now 5-4. Still 2 men down, and Mookie Wilson is coming up. Second RBI of the game for Ray Knight.
Well, Knight has come through in tough situations after making that fielding mistake. That's the veteran hanging in, and John McNamara is coming up.
All right, so as John McNamara heads out to the mound, first thought, is anyone going to pick the toilet paper up off the field at his final plate?
There are multiple rolls. There was one that was already back there, and then a second one dropped.
Baseball in 1986, you can throw a roll of toilet paper on the field. No one's going to pick it up.
This is the same era that Central Michigan men's basketball. They're throwing toilet paper for every first made bucket, which they just brought back a couple of years ago. But throwing toilet paper was a thing at sporting events in the 80s.
Okay, that aside, from a breaking down the broadcast, I think that especially after the foul ball that Ray Knight hits, that was a master class by Bob Murphy in setting things up. The Mets are down to their final strike. The Red Sox were down to their final strike in the ALCS. Dave Henderson, a home run. The same Dave Henderson who hit a home run in the top of this inning. Bob Murphy is putting on a clinic right now of how you set the scene, how you remind people quickly about what has happened, about what might happen next. He is broadcasting this game in such a way that if I didn't know any better, Jesse, I would think this is a national broadcast. This doesn't sound like a Mets announcer who's heartbroken because the team is about to lose the World Series. Again, masterclass in capturing the moment, setting up the moment.
I hope you don't mind me using that metaphor, Forest and the Trees. This is such a different approach to the game than Ken Coleman. He's delivering for you the full narrative. He's putting it all there out in front of you. This is what has led us to this moment, and here we are now. And it's such beautiful context to set up each pitch.
All right, Jesse. So now we have a 1-run ball game, and Mookie Wilson is coming up, and we're going to have a pitching change before we get to the epic conclusion of the 1986 World Series Game 6.
Stanley Steamer, Bob Stanley, and for Calvin Schiraldi.
Bottom half of the 10th inning. Red Sox 1 out away from a World Championship. Stanley in the set position, the pitch. Foul ball skidding off the bat handle. And again, the Mets are down to their last strike. Count 2-2 on Mookie Wilson. Kevin Mitchell at third base. Ray Knight on first. 3 hits in a row. 1 run in. They need 1 more. Now the pitch. Swing, and he fouled him. It looked like he had been struck out. He just barely ticked the ball. And Mookie stays there with a count of 2 balls and 2 strikes. A very memorable 6th World Series game. Stanley working very quickly. The pitch. Fouled out of play behind third. Stanley really anxious to get it over with. He's getting the ball back and almost quick pitching. So Mookie will step out on him to slow him down a little bit. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Let's have only 1 strike left. Stanley is ready. The pitch. Gets away! Gets away! Here comes Mitchell! Here comes Mitchell! Tie game! Tie game! Unbelievable! A wild pitch. The game is tied 5-5. Mitchell comes in to score. Knight, the winning run, is on second. Either a wild pitch or a pass ball. We'll wait for the official scoring. But it's a tie ball game, Gary.
Pitch came low and inside. Gedman did get a glove on it. Slowed it down, but it went all the way to the backstop. Now Wilson.
Okay, so we have more toilet paper in the background, but I want to pause because it gets away. It gets away. Here comes Mitchell. Here comes Mitchell. Tie game. Tie game. The repetitiveness harkens back to down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. The famous call of Howard Cosell. And I don't know how much that was on the mind of Bob Murphy, but the repetitiveness of the way that he calls that, I think, is really good radio.
Can we also call it a style of the time? Because Harry Carey repeated his phrases when he broadcasted. And we just heard Ken Coleman repeat his in order to have it all sink in. I was waiting for him to say, Ray Knight has moved to second. And finally he did say, the winning run is now in scoring position. But it was all about tie game.
All right, let's get to how the game becomes untied.
A chance to win it. 3-2 delivery. Popped the ball up, foul, probably out of play. Gedman coming over. It'll be in the crowd, a foul ball. The winning run is on second base for the 3rd time tonight. The 3rd time in this ball game, the Mets have come from behind. It was scored a wild pitch by Bob Stanley, allowing Mitchell to score. And it's 5-5. The winning run is on second. Mets are down to their final strike. 3-2 on Mookie Wilson. The pitch. Hit down the left field line, foul. Foul ball off the bat of Mookie. Had that been fair, the Cinderella story would have been all over, and the Mets would have been the happiest guys in the world.
2 pitches, twice. The Mets have had just 1 strike left in this game.
As mentioned, the Red Sox were in that position against California. The Mets in that position here tonight, and they have dodged a huge mess-up. They've tied it up. The worst that could happen is to go to the 11th inning. Mookie Wilson still hoping to win it for New York. 3-2 the count. And the pitch by Stanley, and a ground ball trickling. It is a fair ball. Gets by Buckner. Rounding third Knight. The Mets will win the ball game. The Mets win. They win.
Unbelievable. The Red Sox in stunned disbelief.
A slow ground ball went right through the legs of Buckner down the right field line. The Mets have won the ball game. 3 runs in the bottom half of the 10th inning. 3 runs in the 10th inning. They were down to the final strike twice. In the bottom half of the 10th inning, they win the ball game. I thought the ground ball was going to be foul. It stayed fair. It went right through the legs of Billy Buckner and down the right field line.
Bob, what is Billy Buckner doing in the game in the bottom of the 10th inning?
With a 3-run lead.
Do not understand it.
We talked about that earlier, saying they usually put Dave Stapleton into play defense. This crowd and not a soul had left. They're all here. They can't believe what they've just seen. Mets were down and out. It was all over. Somehow, they managed to get 3 runs and they win it. It'll be a very costly error, but nonetheless, the Mets are delighted that it came about that way. A slow ground ball hit by Mookie Wilson went through the wickets on Billy Buckner. Ray Knight at first didn't realize it when he rounded third. Buddy Harrelson said, keep it going, keep it going. And he came racing and in to score, and the Mets have won what must be the most amazing game in their 25-year history. I can't imagine a more remarkable victory. It'll be an error charged to Billy Buckner. It was an amazing play. Buckner came over. It was a very slow ground ball. I thought it was going to be foul. Maybe he thought so. He had the glove down. It went right under the glove. Rolled very slowly down the right field line. Fair ball. And around to score the winning run came Ray Knight. That'll be an error charged on Billy Buckner. In the 10th inning, 3 runs. 3 hits. The biggest error in the World Series. And a man left on. We'll be back with the happiest recap of them all in just a moment. The final in 10 innings, New York 6 and Boston 5.
Did I miss it, Josh? Did he say that the score was 6-5 before that final sum up?
I'm pretty sure that he did. Honestly, I wasn't locked in on whether or not he said the score. My focus was the way that Bob was just kind of recapping the big picture of everything that happened, that they were down to their last strike twice and that he thought the ball might be foul, but indeed it's a fair ball. And just the amazingness of what has just transpired. And I think that it was a really, really good call. Everything about that bottom of the 10th inning, I think is textbook. And I'm really glad that we listened to it in the detail that we did, because even going back to Bob Stanley's anxious on the mound, how quickly he's getting the ball and how Mookie Wilson's trying to slow him down. I think there was just so many really good elements that Bob mentioned throughout that inning.
I would have liked Bob to turn to Gary some more, because Gary makes the great observation about why is Bill Buckner in the game. And I do think in this moment, you as the broadcaster need that moment to just think and process all that has happened. And what do you come back with? But Bob is talking and talking and talking. And as he's talking and talking and talking, he journeys himself from this point to this point to this point. But there is no letting the game breathe. There is not too much space for Gary aside from that. And so I wonder if they had gone back and forth, or if there had been that moment for Bob to think and go, all right, now what do I think is the best thing to focus on? But I do think he's talking as he's watching the pictures and describing the pictures and describing everything that he sees and everything that he's thinking. So that's where I would come down a little harsher on him, is I feel like he's talking until he figures out what to say.
I remember the first time that I heard about, well, why was Buckner in the game? It should have been Dave Stapleton. It was probably when I read Sports Illustrated a week later, or some type of summation later on. Again, I was a teenager, wasn't truly locked in on all the strategy. But this was a good reminder, the way that Gary Thorne jumps in and says, why was Bill Buckner in the game? The gimpy kneed Bill Buckner was usually taken out. Dave Stapleton usually replaced him. It was an immediate reaction. Why was Buckner in the game? And the legacy of this game is all of these things, right? It's that Buckner got blamed for something, even though the wild pitch is what tied it up, right? That was not going to be the final out to win it. It was the redemption of Bill Buckner finally coming back to Fenway a decade later. It was people forgetting what an incredible career he had, and then finally people coming back and remembering what an incredible career he had. And it was John McNamara, the Red Sox manager, why was Bill Buckner in the game? And it was an immediate reaction on the Mets broadcast.
Yes. Yeah. Gary Thorne was all over it. And I would also counter, it's game 6. Just come back, win game 7. You're fine.
Right.
Carlton Fisk homers to win game 6 for the Red Sox. It's okay. The Reds came back and won game 7. But so these are the radio calls. Now, if you don't mind, I grew up watching over and over Vin Scully on the national TV call, and I think it's time.
Galvin Giraldi couldn't do it, and it's up to Bob Stanley, and it's up to Mookie Wilson, and the crowd is alive again, and Rick Aguilera praying that he'll get off the hook. Mookie Wilson struck out, single to right, grounded out, and then sacrificed, and that was the bunt that Gedman fielded and threw high to Spike on at second base.
Dale Ford just checked that ball, rubbing it. Now he's going out to talk to Stanley. I wonder what that's all about.
Stanley throws, among other things, a farm ball. You have the tying run 90 feet away in Kevin Mitchell, and the possible winning run at first in Ray Knight. And here's Mookie. Fouled off. 55,078 here at Shea, and they have really been put through the ringer. One ball, one strike. Ball 2. And on deck, Howard Johnson, who had that most important at-bat in the 9th inning. Fouled away, 2-2. Fouled away again. Fouled away. Tension mounts some more with 2 out in the 10th. 5-4 Red Sox. Ray Knight at first. Kevin Mitchell at third. 2-2 to Mookie Wilson. And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base.
All right, I love pausing it with toilet paper in the background, Jesse. Couple of phrases that I love from Scully. Rick Aguilera praying he gets off the hook. 55,078 at Shea, and they've really been put through the ringer. Another just fabulous phrase. And then also when Scully says fouled away again, and then there's a third foul ball. And I think the restraint from Joe Garagiola as the analyst to not jump in and not feel like he has to say something. We're still 1 strike away from the ending of this World Series. And there's very few things that are being said at this moment, Jesse.
This is minimalist. This is absolute minimalist broadcasting. And after a number of fouls, let's reset for you. Here's the runner at third, the tying run. Here's the runner at first, the potential game-winning run. And now back to the pitch. It's a lovely minimalist broadcast where the pictures are telling the story. And there's Scully to fill it in if you need it, but he sets the stage as the at-bat begins. And then largely he and Joe step back from it and experience it with us.
3-2 to Mookie Wilson. And he pops it in the air, foul off to the right. Gedman coming over. He will not have a play. That was a wild pitch.
Way inside, Gedman reaches for it. You see, he hardly moved as far as shifting, and it gets by him, a wild pitch. Apparently not near where he was looking for the pitch.
5-5 in a delirious 10th inning. Line drive foul.
And Marty Barrett was out of position because they had Knight really picked up, and Stanley didn't see him. There it is again. You see, he just reaches for the ball. Down goes Mookie. It kind of sailed inside. And here comes Barrett in to talk to Stanley, because had Mookie hit just a weak ground ball, Barrett was way out of position because they had a good chance to get Knight at second base.
Can you believe this ball game at Shea?
Oh, brother.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. If one picture is worth 1,000 words, you have seen about 1,000,000 words. But more than that, you have seen an absolutely bizarre finish to Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. The Mets are not only alive, they are well, and they will play the Red Sox in Game 7 tomorrow.
So I want to start with Joe Garagiola, because as you said before, Joe knows when not to talk. And I generally think of the color analyst. When the replays start, that's when they'll say something. And Joe has just given a piece of really good analysis. And that is, they've got Ray Knight picked off. And Bob Stanley missed it. Marty Barrett's going, we had him. You didn't see it. I'm out of position. I'm going to come to the mat. We're going to talk about this. And Joe is on it. Now, Vin, his focus is on something entirely different, because when he comes back with, can you believe this game at Shea? It's Vin, the baseball fan. It's Vin going, this has been wild. Let's see what happens next. And so we go from that analysis right into, let's see what happens. And what happens is the game ends. And the game ends on an error. And Ray Knight dashes in. And Vin delivers a little roller behind the bag. And with behind the bag, his voice jumps. Because when he's saying behind the bag, that's when the ball gets through Buckner. And he finds the word, it gets through Buckner. And now he lays out. And as they go through all these pictures, neither broadcaster says a thing. But when they start showing the replays, the ground ball that Buckner can't handle, we don't hear from the analyst there. Joe isn't talking about the hops and why Buckner can't play it, and maybe Buckner shouldn't be in, and maybe this should be Stapleton. And we're not talking about Knight rounding the bases. We're just letting the pictures show you. So when Vin comes back again, and this is what I now have learned to look for with Vin, is he delivers the climactic call, he lays out, and he lets everything else fill in as the crowd gets delirious. And these pictures are showing us the celebration, and Aguilera in the dugout, and the quieted oil can Boyd, and the crowd, and the hugging on the Mets side. What Vin comes back with is following up with what he led in with what a night at Shea, right? Bizarre. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, you've seen 1,000,000, because he has shown you the pictures. The TV crew has shown you all of these pictures, and watch. And here's what we all witnessed together. And now he's going to lead you into Game 7. So, Josh, I really do think going from Ken Coleman calling pitch by pitch, and then Bob Murphy, where it's just the nonstop talking of everything that's going on. I love this. I love the setup. I love the delivery. You know, the crowd excitement, and that Vin is right on. That's our game-winning run at second. And Joe Garagiola is right on that he should have been picked off. And into how the Mets win. Vin declaring the whole thing bizarre. It is a game that still gives me such great thrill to watch it all over again.
I'm glad you started with the note about Marty Barrett, because we heard Barrett comes in to talk to Bob Stanley on both the Mets and on the Red Sox, but we don't know why, right? We don't know why until Joe Garagiola told us so. I think that when I think back about baseball in the 80s and all the different stars and superstars and how no one was a dynasty and how all these teams, you thought maybe they could win multiple times. I also think about how the pictures, the camera operators, the directors, how they raise the level of television broadcasting so that what makes Game 6 epic is not just what happened on the field, but it's the camera angles. It's Vin Scully's voice. The angle from, I don't know if that's right field or right center field, where we see behind Buckner, that angle, that is a camera placement that is not usually done. The camera placement high above third base that's focused on Ray Knight, how he's slowing down. He's not even running. Then he sees it get by and go, oh no, I better sprint home. Those are camera angles that you still don't even normally see nowadays, Jesse, and you definitely don't see those in regular season games. And so to have those angles available, to show them in that way, I think the entire product is just what raised baseball to a level that I didn't even realize as a kid. But then as we break it down now, I realize this is how you sell a sport. This is how the announcers, the directors, the camera operators, the audio mixers, this is how you all come together and the best of the best are working at the World Series.
That stump, stump, clap that we come back in with, that gets you going. But the sound mixing is excellent. You never strain to hear Vin and Joe's voices, even as you understand how crazy the crowd is growing.
I love it. I love so much. And I love just the three different perspectives of how this was called and breaking down the different ways that they're called. Because, again, I've watched the 1986 playoffs so many times, but I've never watched it in this way. And my appreciation for all the different ways that you could describe it is so much better now than it was about an hour ago.
Well, hey, thanks for going on this journey. This was a 10th inning that I watched over and over and over and over and over on VHS years after the fact, because when this was happening, I was too young. This was not a World Series that I was old enough to see live. But as I grew older, this was a World Series and a postseason that, as a baseball fan, I would go back and watch, because this is so much of what made baseball great to me, is that you didn't know what was around the next corner. You didn't know who was suddenly going to find a comeback out of nowhere, even when there's no energy in the dugout.
Here's one other footnote too. That was a Saturday night. And I remember tuning in Sunday night for Game 7, and the game got rained out. And because we didn't have phones with weather apps, I didn't know that it was raining in New York. And so you had an extra day of drama of stories that needed to be written. And I think that's really when the story about why was Bill Buckner in the game becomes the natural story when there's a rainout. And now Game 7 is Monday. And I remember watching Game 7 at home with my dad of Game 7 of the World Series. And now I want to watch the whole game all over again.
Yeah, this is so good. And the Red Sox took the lead and they blew another lead.
Maybe that's another episode.
A couple more decades before that curse was broken. Josh, thank you.
For Jesse Goldberg-Strassler of the Lansing Lugnuts, I'm Josh Suchon of the Albuquerque Isotopes. This has been Crafting the Call. We'll talk to you again next week.